Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force vessel as the strange signal came through their long-range sensors. For 37 years, humans had been searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, and now that life had found them first. The message came in perfect English, which made Jake's skin crawl with worry. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from outside the solar system," said Lieutenant Sam Parker, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "It's not coming from any of our ships." Jake walked over to the communications station where the signal played on repeat. A voice, clearly not human despite speaking their language, delivered a message that would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. "Greetings to the inhabitants of the third planet of the Sol system. We are representatives of the Galactic Unity Coalition. We have been observing your species for some time as you have begun to spread beyond your home world. It is time for formal contact and discussion of your integration into galactic society." The word integration hit Jake like a physical blow. He had spent enough time in the military to know when someone was trying to make demands sound like offers. The alien voice continued with what sounded like barely contained condescension. "We understand this may come as a surprise to your kind. We have prepared a meeting location in neutral space exactly halfway between your system and our nearest outpost. A diplomatic delegation will arrive there in 14 of your days to begin the process of bringing your species into compliance with established galactic law." Jake felt his jaw clench at the word compliance. These aliens were not asking for a meeting between equals. They were summoning humanity like a parent calling a misbehaving child to account for their actions. The message ended with coordinates and technical specifications for the meeting, assuming humans would simply accept whatever terms were offered. "Get me Admiral Sullivan immediately," Jake ordered. "Priority Alpha communication." Within minutes, Admiral Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. Even through the static of the long-range transmission, Jake could see the same anger in her eyes that he felt burning in his chest. She had obviously heard the message. "Captain Morrison, what's your assessment of this situation?" she asked, though Jake could tell she had already formed her own opinions. "Admiral, with respect, this doesn't sound like a first contact scenario. This sounds like a surrender demand wrapped in diplomatic language. They're not asking to meet us. They're telling us to show up and accept whatever rules they've decided apply to us." Sullivan nodded grimly. "My thoughts exactly. These aliens have been watching us, learning our language, and they've decided we're primitives who need to be managed. The question is, what do we do about it?" Jake looked at his crew, all of whom were listening to every word. These young men and women had joined the Earth Defense Force, believing they were protecting humanity's expansion into space. Now they faced the possibility that some alien coalition thought humans had no right to that expansion without permission. "Admiral, do we know anything about their military capabilities?" Jake asked. "Our intelligence people are working on that now. What we do know is that they've been observing us without us detecting them, which suggests advanced technology. But they also seem to think we're helpless, which might be a mistake on their part." The connection flickered and Sullivan leaned forward. "Captain, I'm authorizing you to attend this meeting as Earth's primary representative. But you won't be going alone. Prepare your crew for what might become the most important mission in human history." After the transmission ended, Jake stood in the sudden quiet of the bridge. His communications officer broke the silence with a question that everyone was thinking. "Captain, what if they're right? What if we really are just primitives compared to them?" Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about every human settlement beyond Earth, every ship exploring the galaxy, every child born in space who had never seen their species' home planet. Then we'll show them that primitives can still bite when cornered. Over the next several hours, Jake reviewed everything Earth's intelligence services had managed to piece together about the coalition. The picture that emerged was disturbing. multiple alien species, organized into a hierarchy that seemed based on military and technological superiority, with strict rules about which species could colonize which areas of space. What worried Jake most was how confident the aliens sounded. They spoke about human integration as if it was already decided, as if showing up to this meeting was just a formality before humans accepted their place as junior members of galactic society. The more Jake thought about it, the more he realized. This first contact scenario could determine whether humanity remained free to chart its own course among the stars, or spent the next 1,000 years following rules written by aliens who had never bothered to ask what humans wanted. Jake sent a message back to Earth recommending that whatever ship attended this meeting should be prepared for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. He had a feeling that these aliens had seriously underestimated what humans were capable of when their freedom was threatened. As his ship began the journey toward Earth to prepare for the meeting, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens' confidence might be their first and most serious mistake. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire reviewed the intelligence reports about humanity with growing satisfaction. The data painted a picture of a young species that had barely managed to crawl beyond their home system using primitive fusion, drives, and basic laser weapons that would have been considered outdated by Coalition standards 300 years ago. The humans appear to be at the technological level we expected, reported intelligence analyst Kethmore as he displayed holographic projections of human ships. Their largest vessels are barely 200 meters in length, and their energy output suggests they're still using crude fusion reactors. Their weapon systems are limited to basic plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles. Veltar studied the images with the practiced eye of someone who had overseen the integration of 17 species into the Coalition. The pattern was always the same. Young species developed faster than light travel, began expanding aggressively into space, and then had to be brought into line before they caused problems for established civilizations. "Have they responded to our message?" Veltar asked. "Yes, Ambassador. They have agreed to attend the meeting and have provided basic technical specifications for their diplomatic vessel. As expected, it's a small ship with minimal defensive capabilities. 12 Coalition vessels moved into position at the designated meeting coordinates representing the military might of 6 different species. The formation was carefully chosen to demonstrate overwhelming superiority without appearing overtly threatening. Each ship was larger and more advanced than anything in the human fleet, or so the Coalition believed. Admiral Thexanar commanded the military escort from his flagship, a battle cruiser that stretched 800 meters from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. He found the whole situation slightly amusing. In his 2 centuries of military service, he had never encountered a species that posed even a minor threat to Coalition forces. "Admiral, our sensors are picking up the human diplomatic vessel approaching the meeting zone," reported his tactical officer. "Any escort?" Thexanar asked, though he expected none. Young species rarely had the resources to spare multiple ships for diplomatic missions. "Negative, sir. Single vessel, just as their message indicated." Meanwhile, in a hidden shipyard beyond, Pluto, Commander Alex Turner received his final orders directly from Admiral Sullivan. The massive form of the USS Leviathan hung in the construction bay like a sleeping giant, its hull black as space and bristling with weapons systems that most of Earth's own military had never seen. "Commander, your mission parameters are simple," Sullivan explained via secure transmission. "Escort our diplomatic team to this meeting. Be prepared for any scenario. These aliens think they're dealing with primitives, and that misconception might be the only advantage we have." Turner looked up at his ship, all 2 kilometers and 300 meters of it. The Leviathan represented 15 years of humanity's most advanced research, built in absolute secrecy using technology reverse-engineered from automated defense systems humanity had encountered in the Outer Rim. It was a weapon of war disguised as a ship, and it was about to become Earth's calling card to the galaxy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez finished her briefings with the human diplomatic team aboard their small escort vessel. As Earth's chief xenobiologist, and the closest thing humanity had to an expert on alien psychology, she had spent weeks analyzing every word of the Coalition's message. Based on their communication patterns, the Coalition operates on a strict hierarchy, she explained to the diplomatic team. Military strength appears to determine political standing. They've made assumptions about our capabilities based on our visible technology, and those assumptions are driving their approach to these negotiations. Captain Helen Barnes, commanding the diplomatic vessel, reviewed the mission parameters one more time. Her ship would arrive at the meeting coordinates as scheduled, carrying the human delegation and appearing to be exactly what the aliens expected. A small, lightly armed vessel representing a species that posed no threat to Coalition interests. What the aliens wouldn't see coming was the Leviathan, which would arrive via a different route and remain hidden until needed. The plan was simple. Let the Coalition reveal their true intentions, then respond appropriately. Back at the meeting coordinates, Ambassador Veltar made final preparations for what he expected would be a routine integration ceremony. He had conducted dozens of these meetings, and they always followed the same pattern. The young species would initially resist, perhaps make some demands about maintaining their independence, but ultimately they would accept Coalition authority when presented with the alternatives. Ambassador, we've prepared the standard integration package, his aide informed him. Territory restrictions, technology sharing agreements, and military limitations. Once they sign, we can begin the process of bringing their expansion under proper control. Veltar nodded approvingly. The humans had spread to nearly a dozen star systems in the past 50 years, an expansion rate that was causing concern among Coalition planners. Left unchecked, humanity might eventually develop into a real problem, but caught early, they could be managed like any other member species. Admiral Thexnar received updates from his tactical officers about human ship movements in their home system. The reports confirmed what Coalition intelligence had predicted: a few dozen small vessels, scattered mining operations, and a handful of colonies that could barely support themselves. Sir, our analysis suggests the humans have a total military force of perhaps 50 vessels, none larger than 300 meters. Their combined firepower wouldn't pose a threat to a single Coalition destroyer. The Admiral allowed himself a slight smile. Sometimes he wondered why the Coalition bothered with formal diplomatic meetings for species this week. A simple ultimatum delivered to their homeworld would achieve the same result with far less ceremony. Dr. Rodriguez continued her analysis of Coalition behavior patterns as the human diplomatic vessel approached the meeting zone. Something about the aliens' confidence bothered her. In her experience, civilizations that had survived long enough to build interstellar empires didn't usually underestimate potential threats so completely. Captain Barnes, I'm recommending we proceed with extreme caution, she advised. Either these aliens are incredibly arrogant or they know something about galactic politics that we don't. As the meeting time approached, both sides prepared for what they expected would be a straightforward negotiation. The Coalition anticipated another routine integration of a primitive species. The humans prepared for the possibility that their freedom among the stars was about to be challenged by forces they didn't fully understand. Neither side realized that their assumptions about each other were about to be shattered in ways that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The human diplomatic vessel approached the Coalition fleet exactly on schedule, its modest size and simple design confirming everything the aliens believed about humanity's technological limitations. Ambassador Veltar watched the small ship with satisfaction, noting how it seemed almost fragile compared to the 12 massive Coalition vessels arrayed in perfect formation. Ambassador, the human vessel is requesting permission to dock with our flagship for the formal ceremony, reported. Communications Officer Zextel. Granted. Have them transfer their delegation to Bay 7. We'll begin the integration protocols immediately. Captain Helen Barnes guided her ship toward the alien flagship, a sleek vessel that dwarfed her own craft by a factor of 4. Her crew maintained professional calm, but she could feel the tension on the bridge. Every human aboard knew they were flying into a situation that could determine their species' future. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from all 12 alien vessels," reported her sensor operator. "Their weapons are powered down, but the potential firepower is significant." Barnes nodded grimly. The coalition was making a statement about the balance of power before negotiations even began. She was about to respond when her communications officer suddenly straightened in his chair. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission on the secure frequency. It's the Leviathan." "Put it through," Barnes ordered, feeling a surge of relief. Commander Turner's voice came through crystal clear. "Diplomatic vessel, this is Leviathan Actual. We are in position and standing by. Proceed with your mission." Barnes looked at her crew and saw her own determination reflected in their faces. Whatever happened in the next few hours, humanity would not face it alone. Aboard the coalition flagship, Ambassador Veltar prepared for the ceremony that would formally bring humanity under coalition authority. The meeting room had been arranged according to traditional protocols, with the human delegation seated at a smaller table facing the representatives of 6 coalition species. "Before we begin," Veltar announced, "we want to assure the human delegation that this integration process is for the benefit of all species involved. The coalition has maintained peace and order in this galaxy for over 2,000 years." Dr. Rodriguez studied the alien ambassador's body language and tone. Everything about his presentation suggested someone explaining reality to children rather than negotiating with equals. She caught Captain Barnes's eye and nodded slightly, confirming what they had both suspected. This was not going to be a negotiation. "Ambassador." "Veltar," Dr. Rodriguez began carefully. "Humanity appreciates the coalition's interest in establishing relations. However, we'd like to understand exactly what you mean by integration." The alien's expression showed mild surprise, as if he hadn't expected humans to ask questions. "Integration simply means accepting your place within the established galactic order. Territory limitations, technology sharing, military restrictions, standard protocols for young species." The words hit the human delegation like a physical blow. Territory limitations meant humans would lose the right to expand freely. Technology sharing meant surrendering their scientific independence. Military restrictions meant accepting permanent inferiority. Captain Barnes leaned forward. "Ambassador, are you saying that humanity would need coalition permission to explore space?" "Of course. Unrestricted expansion leads to conflict. The coalition exists to prevent such problems." At that moment, Admiral Thexnar's voice crackled over the flagship's internal communications. "Ambassador, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy signature approaching our position." Veltar frowned at the interruption. "Admiral, please maintain communications discipline during diplomatic proceedings." "Sir, you need to see this. Now." The transmission cut to the flagship's main display, showing long-range sensor data that made every coalition officer present go silent. A massive object was approaching their position, its energy output reading so high that several technicians were running diagnostics to confirm their instruments weren't malfunctioning. "What is that?" Veltar demanded. Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to tear open 3 kilometers behind the coalition fleet. The USS Leviathan dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a display of controlled violence that sent shockwaves through every coalition vessel. The human dreadnought was a nightmare made real, stretching over 2 kilometers in length and bristling, with weapon systems that looked like they belonged in a war museum rather than on a diplomatic mission. Its hull was scarred from battles the coalition couldn't even imagine, and its weapon arrays were already tracking every ship in the alien fleet. "This is the USS Leviathan." Commander Turner's voice came through on all frequencies, calm and professional. "We are escorting the human diplomatic delegation." Ambassador Veltar stared at the display in shock. The massive human vessel made his flagship look like a small escort craft. Worse, His sensors were detecting energy readings that shouldn't have been possible from a species the Coalition had dismissed as primitive. This can't be accurate," he whispered. Admiral Thexanar's voice came through the communications, again tight with professional concern. "Ambassador, that vessel is targeting all 12 of our ships simultaneously. I've never seen targeting computers that sophisticated." Dr. Rodriguez watched the aliens' reactions with growing understanding. The Coalition's entire approach to humanity had been based on the assumption that humans were technologically inferior. The appearance of the Leviathan had just shattered that assumption completely. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "perhaps we should discuss this integration concept more carefully." Veltar looked from the human delegation to the display showing the massive dreadnought, his mind struggling to process what this meant for everything the Coalition thought it knew about humanity. Commander Turner aboard the Leviathan watched the Coalition fleet's formation begin to shift nervously. His weapons officer reported that every alien vessel was running active scans, trying to understand what they were facing. "Sir, the alien flagship is requesting that we maintain distance," reported his communications officer. Turner considered. The request for exactly 3 seconds. "Tell them the Leviathan will maintain whatever position ensures the safety of human interests." The message was delivered with perfect diplomatic courtesy, but its meaning was unmistakable. The humans had not come to this meeting as supplicants begging for acceptance. They had come as equals, backed by military capability that the Coalition was only now beginning to comprehend. Ambassador Veltar realized with growing horror that the carefully planned integration ceremony had just become something else entirely. Instead of explaining galactic law to primitives, he was now facing a species that might be able to enforce their own laws against anyone who opposed them. The meeting that was supposed to bring humanity under Coalition control had ended before. It truly began, transformed by the appearance of a ship that proved everything the aliens believed about human capabilities was wrong. Admiral Thexnar stared at the tactical display showing the human dreadnought, his military mind struggling to accept what his sensors were telling him. The massive vessel had appeared without warning, demonstrating faster-than-light technology that seemed decades ahead of anything in the Coalition fleet. But what bothered him most was how calmly the human commander had delivered his veiled threat. "Admiral, the alien flagship is transmitting on all frequencies," his communications officer reported. "They're demanding that we explain our presence here." Thexnar felt his pride burning. In 200 years of military service, no one had ever made demands of a Coalition fleet. The humans might have one impressive ship, but they were still facing 12 of the Coalition's finest vessels, commanded by officers with centuries of combat experience. "Maintain position," he ordered. "I want a full tactical analysis of that. Human vessel! There has to be a weakness we can exploit." His tactical officer worked frantically at his console, running scan after scan of the Leviathan. "Sir, I'm detecting massive power signatures throughout the ship. The energy output it's off our scales, but the design appears to be based on principles we don't recognize." Thexnar studied the readings with growing frustration. The human ship was clearly powerful, but he refused to believe that a species barely 50 years into space travel could have developed technology superior to the Coalition's finest engineering. There had to be an explanation. "Perhaps it's mostly for show," he mused aloud. "Impressive appearance but limited actual capability. Young species often try to appear more dangerous than they really are." Aboard the Leviathan, Commander Turner watched the Coalition fleet's movements with professional interest. His tactical officer was tracking 12 alien vessels, each one running active scans and clearly trying to determine the dreadnought's capabilities. "Sir, the alien fleet is maintaining aggressive positioning," reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh, his tactical officer. "Their weapons are powered down, but they could bring them online quickly if they chose to." Turner nodded calmly. He had expected this kind of posturing. Military commanders throughout the galaxy probably shared certain basic instincts, and one of those instincts was to test unknown opponents before backing down. "What's our weapon status?" he asked. "All systems green, sir. We have targeting solutions on all 12 vessels and can engage simultaneously if necessary." Turner allowed himself a slight smile. The Coalition had no idea what they were dealing with. The Leviathan wasn't just powerful. It was designed specifically to engage multiple opponents at once, using technology that even Earth's own scientists didn't fully understand. Back aboard the Coalition flagship, Ambassador Veltar was receiving increasingly urgent reports from his military commanders. The human delegation sat quietly, watching the alien officials struggle to process a situation they had never anticipated. "Ambassador, Admiral Thexnar is requesting permission to conduct a demonstration of Coalition." "Firepower," reported his aide. "He believes the humans need to understand the consequences of challenging established authority." Dr. Rodriguez felt her blood run cold. She had spent enough time studying military history to know that demonstrations of force often led to actual violence, especially when pride and miscommunication were involved. "Ambassador Veltar," she said carefully, "perhaps we should focus on diplomatic solutions rather than military displays." The alien ambassador looked at her with something approaching desperation. His carefully planned integration ceremony had turned into a potential confrontation with a species that might actually be able to fight back. "Dr. Rodriguez, your vessel's presence has complicated our normal procedures. Perhaps if it withdrew to a safe distance, we could return to productive negotiations." Captain Helen Barnes, still aboard her diplomatic vessel, listened to the exchange with growing concern. She could see the tactical situation developing on her own displays, and it looked like both sides were preparing for a fight that nobody really wanted. Admiral Thexnar made his decision without consulting the ambassador. His pride demanded that these upstart humans understand their place in the galactic hierarchy, and he knew exactly how to demonstrate Coalition superiority. "Attention, human vessel," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You will observe a demonstration of Coalition military capability. This will help you understand the futility of resistance to established galactic order." Commander Turner received the transmission with complete calm. "Acknowledged, Coalition vessel. We will observe your demonstration with great interest." Thexnar targeted a large asteroid approximately 10,000 kilometers from the fleet position, his flagship's main weapons charged with impressive displays of energy, creating light shows that were visible across the Coalition formation. When he fired, the beam struck the asteroid and shattered it into thousands of glowing fragments. "There," he announced with satisfaction. "That is the kind of firepower that maintains peace in this galaxy." Turner watched the display with professional appreciation, then turned to his weapons officer. "Impressive light show. Now show them what real firepower looks like." The Leviathan's primary weapons array began to charge, and immediately every Coalition sensor officer began reporting energy readings that made their previous measurements look like background radiation. The human dreadnought's weapons drew power from systems the aliens couldn't even identify, building to an energy concentration that defied their understanding of physics. When Turner gave the order to fire, the result was beyond anything the Coalition had imagined possible. A single beam from the Leviathan didn't just destroy the demonstration asteroid, it vaporized it completely, along with two smaller asteroids in the distance that happened to be in the beam's path. The demonstration lasted exactly 3.7 seconds and consumed enough energy to power a Coalition capital ship for a month. The message was crystal clear. Human weapons technology operated on a completely different scale than anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Admiral Thexnar stared at his tactical displays in shock. His own demonstration had looked like a child's toy compared to what the humans had just accomplished. The energy readings were so far beyond Coalition capabilities that his instruments could barely measure them. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "if they can do that to an asteroid, What could they do to our ships? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Thexnar realized with growing horror that his demonstration of strength had backfired completely. Instead of intimidating the humans, he had given them an excuse to show just how outclassed the Coalition fleet really was. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. These humans had humiliated him in front of his own fleet, and military tradition demanded a response. He began issuing orders that would turn a failed diplomatic meeting into the most significant military confrontation in galactic history. All ships, assume attack formation. Target the human vessel and prepare to demonstrate that numbers can overcome individual superiority. The 12 Coalition vessels moved into attack formation with practiced precision, their hulls gleaming in the starlight as weapon systems came online across the fleet. Admiral Thexnar watched his tactical display with grim satisfaction, convinced that superior numbers and coordinated fire would prove that the human dreadnought was just an impressive but ultimately vulnerable target. Commander Turner observed the alien formation with calm professionalism, his hands steady on the command console as his crew prepared for what appeared to be inevitable combat. He had hoped the demonstration would convince the Coalition to reconsider their approach, but it seemed their military commander had chosen escalation over wisdom. "Sir, all Coalition vessels are charging weapons," reported Lieutenant Commander Walsh. "They're coordinating their targeting systems for a simultaneous attack." Turner nodded, unsurprised by the development. Military pride was apparently a universal constant, and the alien admiral had clearly decided that backing down would be worse than fighting a battle he couldn't win. "Bring all defensive systems online," Turner ordered. "Full shield deployment, and activate point defense arrays. Let them see exactly what they're choosing to fight." Dr. Rodriguez watched the situation spiral toward violence from her position aboard the diplomatic vessel, her mind racing through possible ways to prevent what appeared to be an inevitable catastrophe. The Coalition forces were clearly preparing to attack the Leviathan, apparently believing that 12 ships could overwhelm one human vessel through coordinated fire. "Captain Barnes, we need to try something," she said urgently. "This is about to become a shooting war that could destroy any chance of peaceful relations." Barnes was already moving toward the communications station. "Open a channel to all vessels, Coalition and human. Maximum power, all frequencies." As the channel opened, Rodriguez took a deep breath and began what might be humanity's last attempt at preventing a galactic war. "This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, of Earth, speaking for the human diplomatic delegation. We came to this meeting hoping for peaceful contact between our species and the Coalition. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. I urge all commanders to step back from actions that cannot be undone." Her words carried across space to every ship in both fleets, but Admiral Thexnar was beyond the reach of diplomatic appeals. His formation was perfect, his weapons fully charged, and his pride demanded that these upstart humans be taught their proper place in the galactic order. "Human vessel, you will power down your weapons and surrender for processing," he broadcast. "Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Commander Turner's response was immediate and chilling in its calm professionalism. "Coalition Commander, the USS Leviathan will defend itself and human interests with all necessary force. You are advised to reconsider your current course of action." Ambassador Veltar, watching the confrontation unfold from his flagship, finally realized the magnitude of what was happening. This was no longer a routine integration of a primitive species. This was first contact between the Coalition and a military power that might actually be able to challenge their authority. And his military commander was about to start a war based on wounded pride. "Admiral Thexnar, stand down your weapons immediately," he transmitted urgently. "I am ordering you to withdraw from aggressive positions." But Thexnar was no longer listening to diplomatic authority. 2 centuries of unchallenged military superiority had convinced him that no single vessel, no matter how impressive, could stand against a properly coordinated coalition attack. He was about to prove that assumption wrong in the most dramatic way possible. All ships, fire warning shots across the human vessel's bow. Show them we mean business. The first energy beams lanced out from the coalition flagship, carefully aimed to pass just ahead of the Leviathan's massive hull. It was a classic military intimidation tactic, designed to demonstrate superior firepower while offering the enemy one last chance to surrender. The shots never reached their intended destination. The Leviathan's point defense systems activated, automatically intercepting every energy beam with precision that bordered on the supernatural. The alien weapons fire simply vanished, absorbed by defensive grids that the coalition had never imagined possible. Commander Turner's response was swift and devastating. A single, precisely controlled burst from the Dreadnought's secondary batteries struck Thexnar's flagship, stripping away its shields and disabling its weapon systems without destroying the vessel. The display of surgical precision was somehow more terrifying than total destruction would have been. The remaining 11 coalition ships immediately powered down their weapons, their commanders finally understanding that they were facing technology so far advanced that resistance was pointless. The brief exchange had demonstrated not just human firepower, but human restraint under fire. Admiral Thexanar stared at his disabled ship's displays in complete shock. His flagship's weapons were offline, his shields were down, and his main power was fluctuating, but his vessel remained intact. The humans could have destroyed him completely, but had chosen not to. The implications of that choice were staggering. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "they could have killed us all." The words hung in the air as the reality of the situation finally penetrated Thexnar's pride. The humans hadn't just demonstrated superior firepower. They had shown the kind of restraint that only came from absolute confidence in their abilities. Commander Turner opened communications to the entire coalition fleet, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had just proven his point. "Beyond any doubt, coalition vessels, this is Commander Turner of the USS Leviathan. We have no desire for further conflict. However, any additional aggressive actions will be met with appropriate force. We recommend that all parties return to diplomatic discussions." Ambassador Veltar found his voice first, though it shook with the knowledge of how close they had come to complete disaster. "Commander Turner, the Coalition apologizes for this misunderstanding. We would like to resume negotiations immediately." Dr. Rodriguez felt a surge of relief as the immediate crisis passed, but she knew the real work was just beginning. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted fundamentally, and no one was quite sure what that meant for the future. Admiral Sullivan, monitoring the situation from Earth, authorized Turner to deliver humanity's new terms. The conversation that followed would establish the foundation for human-alien relations for generations to come, but it would be conducted very differently than anyone had originally planned. The aftermath of the confrontation left the coalition fleet hanging motionless in space, their commanders struggling to process what had just occurred. Admiral Thexanar sat in his disabled flagship, staring at displays that showed the true scope of human military capability. His weapons were offline, his shields were down, and his pride lay in ruins around him. "Sir, we're receiving damage assessment reports from all ships," his tactical officer reported quietly. "The human vessel could have destroyed our entire fleet in under 30 seconds. The numbers were devastating. The Leviathan's brief demonstration had shown targeting precision and firepower that exceeded coalition capabilities by orders of magnitude. Worse, the human ship had accomplished this while barely drawing on its full power reserves. Commander Turner maintained his position exactly 3 kilometers from the coalition formation, close enough to remind everyone of the Leviathan's presence, but far enough to avoid appearing overtly threatening. His crew remained at battle stations, professional and ready, while the alien commanders tried to figure out how to salvage something from a situation that had gone completely wrong. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Sullivan on Earth," reported his communications officer. Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen, her expression carefully neutral despite the magnitude of what had just occurred. "Commander Turner, you have authorization to establish new terms for human coalition relations. Make it clear that Earth will engage with the coalition as equals, not subjects." Turner nodded and opened a channel to Ambassador Veltar's flagship. "Ambassador, Earth is prepared to discuss diplomatic relations between our species. However, we will not accept any restrictions on human expansion or sovereignty. We are willing to work within reasonable galactic protocols, but we will not submit to coalition authority." The words hit the coalition leadership like a physical blow. For 2,000 years, they had maintained order by ensuring that young species accepted their place in the established hierarchy. Now they faced a species that not only refused to accept that hierarchy, but had the military power to enforce their refusal. Dr. Rodriguez found herself in the unexpected position of conducting first contact negotiations from a position of strength rather than weakness. The carefully prepared coalition integration package lay forgotten as both sides worked to establish an entirely new framework for interspecies relations. "Ambassador Veltar, humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all galactic civilizations," she began. "We're willing to respect established territorial boundaries and participate in diplomatic forums. However, we will not accept limitations on our technological development or expansion into unclaimed space." Veltar looked around the conference room at his advisors, all of whom appeared as shaken as he felt. Everything they thought they knew about galactic politics had just changed forever. "Dr. Rodriguez, the coalition will need time to reconsider our standard protocols. Your species has presented us with circumstances we have never encountered before. Over the next 3 days, the Leviathan remained at the meeting coordinates while coalition engineers conducted detailed scans of the human dreadnought. The readings they obtained forced a complete revision of their understanding of human technological capabilities. The ship wasn't just powerful, it represented engineering principles that the coalition's best scientists couldn't even begin to understand. "The energy output readings are consistent, sir," reported Chief Engineer Vextal to Ambassador Veltar. "That vessel generates more power than our entire fleet combined, and the targeting systems, they can engage every ship in a battle group simultaneously with pinpoint accuracy." The implications were staggering. Humanity possessed military technology that made them potentially the most powerful species in known space, yet they had remained hidden until this moment. The Coalition's intelligence services faced a complete reorganization of their threat assessments. Captain Jake Morrison arrived at the meeting coordinates aboard a small human escort vessel carrying formal diplomatic credentials from Earth's government. His mission was to establish permanent diplomatic relations with the Coalition. But the terms of those relations had changed dramatically since his original orders were written. "Commander Turner, Admiral Sullivan sends her congratulations on a mission well executed," Morrison reported as he transferred to the Leviathan. "Earth's leadership is prepared to offer the Coalition a mutual defense pact and technology sharing agreement, assuming they're willing to treat us as equals." The offer was generous beyond what anyone had expected, but it came with clear conditions. Humanity would share certain technologies with Coalition species, but would retain control over their most advanced systems. Human space would remain under human authority, and Earth would participate in galactic affairs as a major power rather than a junior member. Ambassador Veltar found himself negotiating with a species that could dictate terms rather than accept them. The humans were offering cooperation, but they were also making it clear that opposition would be inadvisable. "Dr. Rodriguez, the Coalition accepts Earth's proposal for equal partnership," he finally announced. "We look forward to productive relations between our civilizations." The first human embassy opened in Coalition space 6 months later, housed in a massive space station that arrived under escort by 3 more Dreadnought-class vessels. The galaxy had learned that humanity didn't travel alone, and every major power began reassessing their relationships with both Earth and the Coalition. Admiral Sullivan reviewed reports from across human space as construction began on 12 more Leviathan-class vessels. Other alien civilizations, having heard about the first contact incident, were sending their own diplomatic overtures to Earth. The messages were notably different in tone from the Coalition's original transmission, filled with respect, rather, than condescension. "Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different species," reported her aide. "They all want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth." Sullivan smiled as she approved the construction of humanity's first deep space diplomatic facility. The galaxy had discovered that humans were far from primitive, and the news was spreading quickly through interstellar communication networks. Commander Turner returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the Leviathan was only the first of many such vessels. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as a force that would chart its own course among the stars. The final transmission sent from the meeting coordinates was addressed to every major civilization in known space. It was simple, direct, and unmistakably human in its confidence. "This is Earth. We are here, we are strong, and we are ready to take our place among the stars. We offer friendship to those who approach us with respect, and we promise swift response to any who threaten human interests. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but it will be shared on terms of equality, not domination." The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.